All right, so you're thinking about reading The Book Thief, huh? And you were smart enough to send us a whole stack of reviews and articles about it.
Yeah, looks like you did your homework before, committing to a pretty big book.
Yeah, exactly. So, straight to the point here, should they actually read this thing? Should it go on the must-read list, or is it more of a maybe later?
Well, I think based on everything you sent over, The Book Thief is a definite yes. It's a really powerful book. Emotionally, the writing is really unique, and it gives you a new way to think about World War II.
Okay,
But
but I'm getting the feeling our listeners still not quite sure. And it makes sense. I mean, this book was super popular, so maybe it's a little overhyped. I'm seeing some mixed opinions in these reviews.
oh, for sure. It's always good to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of reviewers did say it was kind of slow or maybe a little too sentimental, but almost everyone else was really moved by the story, and they kept saying good things about how Zusak writes. It's not your typical style. It's very lyrical, almost like poetry sometimes.
Lyrical, huh?
Right.
So maybe not the best choice if you just want a book with a straight-up plot.
Probably not if you like things simple. Yeah, Zusak uses a lot of metaphors and imagery. Some people loved that, but others thought it was distracting. But I think what really makes this book different is the narrator, Death.
Death. Whoa, okay, that's not something you see every day.
Oh.
I have to say, I'm intrigued, but also a little worried. Is this going to be, like, super depressing?
That's the interesting thing. It's not, Death is actually pretty compassionate, even funny sometimes. It's more like they're watching everything happen instead of, being the Grim Reaper. And the reviewer said this really made them think about what it means to be human in a whole new way.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this book is so special. But World War II stories can be pretty heavy, even with a nice death narrator. Did the reviewers feel like this was emotionally draining?
Definitely emotionally intense, but not like super depressing. The reviewers actually said they laughed out loud sometimes, especially at the relationship between Liesel, she's the book thief, and her foster father, Hans. He seems to bring a lot of warmth and humor to the story.
Humor during such a tough time, that's amazing. But knowing how history went, the ending must be,
Yeah.
you know.
You'd think, right? But people were still surprised by how the story ended, even though death kind of hints at what's going to happen. There's still a lot of suspense and emotional moments. A lot of people said they were totally hooked, even though they knew what was going to happen historically.
Sounds like Zusak keeps us guessing, even when we think we know what's coming. So we've got a unique narrator, humor, emotional depth.
Right.
What about comparing The Book Thief to other World War II stories? What makes it stand out from the rest?
One thing that came up a lot in the reviews was the German perspective. We see the war through the eyes of regular people living under Nazi rule. That's something you don't usually find in World War II books.
Yeah, that's really important, seeing history from different sides. So let's talk about Liesel, the book thief herself. She's literally stealing books in Nazi Germany. What's her story all about?
People found Liesel really relatable and inspiring.
Yeah.
Imagine being a young girl during a war and finding comfort and escape in books. She's not perfect, but her love of reading helps her stay strong. It's something a lot of readers connected with.
I can see why, especially for people who love books like us. And what about Rudy Liesel's best friend? I read somewhere that he has hair the color of lemons. What an image.
It's a perfect description of him. The reviewers say he's this bright and loyal boy who brings a lot of happiness to Liesel's life. Their friendship seems to be a huge part of the book, shining through, even during the darkest parts.
Okay, I'm definitely getting interested in these characters. But one question that popped up in your research,
Yeah.
is this book too young for adults? It's sometimes put in the young adult section,
That's a good question, and it's something the review has talked about, too. While younger people can definitely enjoy The Book Thief, a lot of adult reviewers said it was really powerful and made them think a lot.
So it's not just a book for teenagers.
No, not at all. It deals with some really complex and mature themes. But we should probably compare it to some other books to give our listener a better idea of where The Book Thief fits in, the world of literature.
Exactly. Like if someone loved Number of the Stars when they were younger, The Book Thief is like a deeper look at those same ideas.
Uh-huh.
And for people who were really moved by Night or The Diary of Anne Frank, this book shows the Holocaust in a different but just as powerful way.
Okay, that helps a lot. But some of the reviews you found really go into detail about how Zusak writes, and it seems like people either love it or hate it.
Yeah, that's true. Some people thought the metaphors and imagery were amazing. One person even said it was like watching a musical or a really dramatic play, super visual and evocative.
I can see how some people would love that, but I bet it could be too much for other people. Did any of the reviewers say it was over the top?
Oh yeah, some people definitely thought his style was too flowery or sentimental, almost like he was trying too hard to make you feel things. They wanted something simpler.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a risk. But even the people who didn't love the writing, seemed to admit that the book really got to them emotionally. And let's face it, a book that makes you cry can be pretty powerful even if the writing isn't perfect.
For sure. But there's another thing that divided people. The way death is always hinting at what's going to happen. Some people thought it made the story more suspenseful, knowing that some characters were going to die.
Yeah, one reviewer said it made them feel like history was closing in on the characters. But other people felt like it ruined the surprise and made the emotional stuff less impactful.
That's a good point. It's definitely a bold move by Zusak. It's like he's saying, you know how this is going to end, but pay attention to how we get there. Pay attention to the little things.
It's almost like he's challenging us to find beauty and meaning, even though we know something tragic is going to happen. Which, when you think about it, is kind of like life itself, isn't it?
Exactly. And that brings us back to the German perspective. Our listener might be wondering how the book thief handles such a touchy subject.
Right? We're not just talking about battles and fighting here, but about what it was like to live under Nazi rule and all the moral questions that came with that. How did the reviewers feel about that part of the book?
Some of them said Zusak did a great job of showing how complicated German society was. He doesn't just say everyone was good or bad. We see characters like Hans Liesel's foster father, who puts his own life in danger to hide a Jewish man. He represents the people who quietly resisted the Nazis because they knew it was the right thing to do.
That's really powerful. A normal person choosing to be kind, even when everything is pushing him to do the opposite. But we also have to think about the people who weren't so brave. What about them?
The book shows that side too. Rosa Liesel's foster mother is a good example. At first she seems mean and uncaring, but she's also incredibly strong, and in her own way she really loves Liesel.
It sounds like Zusak is saying that even when terrible things are happening, people are still complicated and full of contradictions.
Exactly. And the book thief doesn't shy away from showing how Nazi propaganda affected regular people. There's a really chilling line where Liesel realizes that Hitler would be nothing without words. It shows how powerful language can be, how it can be used to control people and make them do terrible things.
Wow, that's a really powerful idea. And it's something we should think about even today. I mean, we're constantly getting information thrown at us, so it's super important to be able to think critically.
Totally. And speaking of thinking critically, the notes you sent for a possible video review mentioned talking about the things people are saying online about the book.
Oh, right. What are people saying about the book thief online? Is there anything we should mention that comes up a lot?
One thing people criticize is that the book can be too sentimental, almost like it's trying to force you to feel sad.
I can see that. It does seem like a book that's going to make you cry. But is that always a bad thing?
Not really. A lot of people said the emotional parts felt real and moving. They felt like Zusak really understood what it means to be human and wrote about it in a way that resonated with them.
So it depends on how much you like emotional books. What about the good stuff? What do people praise about the book?
One thing that comes up a lot is the message about how powerful stories are. Liesel finds comfort and hope in books, even though she's living through a war.
It's like those books are a lifeline for her. They remind her that there's still beauty and goodness in the world.
Exactly. And then there's Liesel's journey of self-discovery through reading and writing. She starts out stealing her first book because she's sad and desperate, and in the end she finds real comfort and meaning in words.
It really shows how powerful it can be to learn to read and write. And even if we haven't been through a war ourselves, we all turn to stories sometimes when we need comfort or escape or inspiration. The Book Thief just shows us that experience in a really powerful way because it's set during such a significant time in history.
Yeah, it does. It makes you connect with something we all feel, looking for meaning and connection in a world that can be amazing and awful at the same time.
So we've talked about a lot of things, the unique narrator, the complex characters, the historical setting, even what people are saying online. But after all that, should our listener actually pick up The Book Thief?
Well, if they're looking for a light and easy read, this is probably not it. The Book Thief, it makes you think and it makes you feel.
Yeah, so maybe not a good book to take to the beach. But what if our listener wants something that will stick with them?
Yeah.
Something that will make them think and feel deeply.
Then I'd say go for it. The Book Thief is worth reading. The writing is beautiful, it's emotionally powerful, and it gives you a new way to see a part of history we all think we know.
Sounds like it could be a really powerful experience for the reader. But before we wrap up, are there any warnings we should give our listener?
We've mentioned a few already. Some people might not like the way it's written. If you like stories that are straightforward and don't use a lot of metaphors, you might not like how Zusak writes.
Right, and some people might not like how death is always hinting at what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you hate spoilers, even the ones that are on purpose, this might not be the book for you.
And of course, the subject matter itself is pretty heavy. The Book Thief is about war and loss and the Holocaust. It's not a happy book.
So to sum it up, The Book Thief is a powerful, moving, beautifully written story. It deals with some tough stuff. It's a book that will stay with you, but it's not for everyone.
Exactly. It's really up to each person to decide if they want to read The Book Thief. But hopefully we've given our listener enough information to make a good decision.
I think we covered everything pretty well. We talked about the reviews, the writing, the characters, the themes, even what people are saying about it online.
We gave them the whole picture, good, bad, and everything in between.
Exactly. Now it's up to them to decide if they want to read it. But before we go, I want to leave our listener with one last thought. The Book Thief reminds us that words are powerful. They can be used to hurt people, but they can also be used to heal. As you go on your own reading journey, remember how much words can affect you. Choose them carefully, use them wisely, and let them take you to new places, both real and imaginary.